Success doesn't come knocking at your door. It doesn't show up gift wrapped, and it doesn't wait for you to be ready. Too many people sit around hoping someone will rescue them, push them, or hand them an opportunity. But here's the truth: nobody's gonna do it for you. Your dreams, your goals, your future, it's all on you. If you don't get up, if you don't grind, if you don't push yourself when it gets hard, then nobody else will. This is your life, your responsibility, and your fight. POS yourself, because no one else is gonna do it for you. You see, one of the most dangerous illusions you can fall into is the belief that somebody else is responsible for the trajectory of your life. It's tempting, it's comfortable. You can always point to your parents, to your teachers, to the economy, to your boss, to your circumstances. And in doing so, you buy yourself a temporary escape from responsibility. But here's the problem: the moment you place the burden of your future in someone else's hands, you've already surrendered the very power you need to move forward. That's not just a mistake, it's a tragedy. Think about it this way. If you're waiting for someone to save you, what are you really saying? You're saying that your own effort, your own strength, your own decisions aren't enough. You're saying that you're helpless without external validation or support. And once you believe that story, once you repeat it to yourself long enough, you stop trying, you stop pushing. You resign yourself to mediocrity. That's a psychological trap, and most people never crawl out of it. The truth is, self-reliance isn't just some motivational catchphrase. It's a psychological necessity. If you don't trust yourself to carry the weight of your own life, then who will? And what happens when the people you're relying on are gone? What happens when the encouragement dries up? When the handouts stop coming? When the applause fades? If your motivation is built on others, it collapses the moment they step away. But if it's built on self-reliance, on your own willpower, discipline, and commitment, then it becomes unshakable. That's why the most successful people you've ever admired are fundamentally self-driven. They might have mentors, yes, but their foundation is their own relentless responsibility. Now, responsibility is heavy. There's no denying that. It means accepting that your failures are your own. It means acknowledging that if your life isn't where you want it to be, you had a hand in creating that. But, and this is critical, that same weight that seems unbearable at first is also the key to freedom. Because once you accept responsibility, you also realize that you have the ability to change. If it's your fault, then it's also within your power to fix it. That shift in perspective is life-changing. But most people don't want that weight. They'd rather stay victims, because victimhood is easier. It gives you a story to tell. It gives you sympathy. But sympathy doesn't build businesses. Sympathy doesn't get you fit. Sympathy doesn't create art or wealth or influence. Action does. And action only comes when you finally say to yourself, no one is coming to do this for me. If I don't move, nothing moves. The philosopher Nietzsche said that each of us must carry a burden great enough to give our life meaning. That's what responsibility is. It's the acceptance of that burden. And the paradox is this: the heavier the responsibility you accept, the stronger you become. People think freedom comes from avoiding responsibility. That's wrong. Real freedom comes when you voluntarily shoulder it. Because when you do, you're no longer at the mercy of other people's decisions. You're not waiting for the world to hand you opportunities. You're creating them. And maybe that's the hardest truth of all. No matter how much you love someone, they can't walk your path for you. They can encourage you, they can point the way, but the walking, the pushing, that's on you. It always has been, and it always will be. Motivation is seductive, but it's fragile. We've all felt that burst of energy at the start of something new. The excitement of beginning a project, the adrenaline rush when you set a big goal, the inspiration you feel after watching a powerful speech or reading a book. But here's the problem: motivation is tied to emotion, and emotions are unpredictable. They rise and fall depending on your mood, your circumstances, even the weather. If your ability to act depends on whether you feel motivated, then you've already set yourself up for failure, because feelings are unreliable guides. This is where discipline enters the picture. Discipline is the antidote to the instability of motivation. Discipline says, I don't care how I feel today, I'm gonna do what needs to be done. That might sound rigid, but in truth it's liberating. Because once you rely on discipline instead of motivation, your progress is no longer at the mercy of fleeting emotions. You're no longer waiting for the perfect conditions to move forward. You're moving forward regardless of the conditions. Think about the great achievements of history, the lives of people who accomplished extraordinary things. Do you really believe they felt motivated every single day? Do you think inventors, writers, athletes, or leaders woke up each morning flooded with inspiration? Of course not. They got tired, they got discouraged, they had doubts. What set them apart wasn't an endless stream of motivation. It was their refusal to let their emotions dictate their actions. They showed up anyway. And showing up again and again is what built the foundation of their success. There's a psychological principle at play here. We often assume that feelings come first, then actions follow. We think, once I feel motivated, I'll get to work. But in reality, it's often the opposite. Action precedes feeling. When you act, when you start moving, when you push yourself into the work, motivation tends to show up after the fact. It's as if your brain rewards you for taking initiative, and that creates momentum. So the real question isn't, how do I stay motivated? The real question is, how do I train myself to act regardless of motivation? That's discipline. Discipline is also a form of self-respect. It's the recognition that your future self is just as real as your present self. and that what you do today directly shapes who you become tomorrow. Every time you follow through on a commitment, even when you don't feel like it, you're sending a message to yourself: I can trust me. I can rely on me. That trust compounds over time. It strengthens your identity. Instead of being someone who quits when it's inconvenient, you become someone who follows through no matter what. And that identity is priceless, because once you know you can rely on yourself, there's very little you can't accomplish. Now, discipline isn't glamorous. It doesn't look exciting. It's not the highlight reel you see on social media. Discipline is the 5 a.m. wake-ups, the lonely hours of practice, the nights when you stay in and work while everyone else is out having fun. It's repetition. It's sacrifice. But it's also the only path to mastery. Without it, your goals remain fantasies, nice ideas that never materialize. With it, even ordinary people can achieve extraordinary outcomes. So when you catch yourself waiting for motivation, stop and remember you don't need it. What you need is the courage to act without it. That shift from waiting to doing is the difference between a life of excuses and a life of progress. Discipline is freedom. It's a structure that carries you when your feelings betray you. Build it, practice it, protect it, and it will take you further than motivation ever could. We live in a culture that tells us to avoid pain at all costs. Comfort is marketed as the highest ideal. Instant gratification, quick fixes, shortcuts. Everything is designed to shield us from discomfort, from the smallest inconvenience to the deepest struggles of life. But that message is a lie, and a dangerous one, because pain is not just unavoidable, it's essential. Without it, there is no growth. Without it, there is no transformation. If you run from pain, you run from the very experiences that make you stronger. Think about the process of lifting weights. Every rep is a small act of self-inflicted discomfort. You tear muscle fibers, it hurts. But that tearing, that controlled damage, is precisely what signals your body to adapt, to rebuild stronger than before. Without the pain of exertion, there is no strength. That principle is not limited to the gym, it's the fundamental law of human development. Growth requires stress, change requires sacrifice. You cannot become more without giving up something of who you are. And this applies not just physically, but psychologically. If you avoid difficult conversations, if you shy away from challenges, if you protect yourself from failure, you also protect yourself from growth. Every step forward in life involves some measure of suffering. The student who studies late into the night, the entrepreneur who risks rejection, the artist who pours their soul into their work, all of them endure discomfort, uncertainty, and pain. But in that process, they expand. They discover resilience they didn't know they had. They become capable of carrying more weight than before. Philosophically, pain carries meaning. It strips away illusions. When life hurts, you're confronted with the raw truth of your limitations, your weaknesses, your flaws. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. Pain forces you to face reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. And in that confrontation, you gain the chance to grow. Nietzsche once wrote, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." That's not cynicism, it's wisdom. He was pointing to the fact that suffering is not only inevitable, but also deeply formative. The meaning you extract from it determines whether you're broken by it or built by it. Now, most people want the results of growth without the process that produces it. They want strength without struggle, wisdom without mistakes, victory without sacrifice. But that's impossible. Pain is the admission price you pay for progress. The question is not whether you'll suffer. The question is whether you'll choose your suffering wisely. Will you endure the temporary pain of discipline or the permanent pain of regret? Will you embrace the discomfort that builds you or run from it and remain small? Here's the paradox: the more you avoid pain, the weaker you become. A life insulated from difficulty is a life stripped of resilience. It's like raising a child in a bubble, protecting them from every scratch and failure. They grow older, but not stronger. They step into the world and the smallest setback shatters them. And yet, if you allow them to face challenges, if you let them struggle, they develop the toughness to survive and thrive. The same is true for you. So stop looking at pain as an enemy. Start seeing it as a teacher. It's the refining fire that burns away your excuses and forges your character. Every scar, every failure, every setback is proof that you were willing to endure what others ran from. That willingness is what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. Pain is not punishment, it's preparation. Embrace it, learn from it, carry it with dignity, because in the end, it is through pain that you discover just how powerful you can truly become. Talent is overrated. It's useful, yes, but it's not decisive. In fact, talent without consistency is little more than wasted potential. How many people do you know who were naturally gifted at something, whether it was academics, sports, music, or leadership, yet never became what they could have been? The world is full of brilliant failures, people who had the raw ability but lacked the discipline to show up every day. And in the long run, it is not brilliance but consistency that determines success. Consistency is a humble virtue. It's not flashy. It doesn't impress people in the moment. It's boring even. Waking up at the same time every day, doing the work whether you feel like it or not, practicing the basics until they become second nature. That's what consistency looks like. But while talent may set the ceiling for your potential, consistency is what actually raises the floor. It ensures that no matter how high or low your natural gifts, you make the most of what you've been given. Psychologically, consistency rewires your brain. Every repeated action carves a groove in your nervous system, strengthening connections until what was once difficult becomes automatic. That's how habits are built. That's how mastery is achieved. People often overestimate the importance of single moments of inspiration and underestimate the power of steady repetition. One extraordinary effort can make a splash, but only daily effort creates momentum. It's not about what you do once, it's about what you do repeatedly, almost ritualistically, until it shapes who you are. Consistency also carries a moral weight. It's a demonstration of reliability, not just to others, but to yourself. When you commit to something and follow through day after day, you prove that your word has value. You're building an identity of integrity. And that matters because identity shapes destiny. If you see yourself as someone who only works when they feel like it, then your life will be governed by moods and circumstances. But if you see yourself as someone who shows up regardless, then your future is anchored in stability. You become trustworthy internally and externally. Now think about the way small actions compound over time. If you improve just 1% each day, that might seem insignificant in the short run. But over a year, those incremental gains multiply into profound transformation. Consistency is compound interest applied to human effort. It's not glamorous and it doesn't yield immediate results, but it is unstoppable. The irony is that the person who plods steadily forward often surpasses the one who sprints sporadically. Slow, consistent movement builds momentum that erratic bursts never achieve. There's also a deeper philosophical truth here. Life itself is structured around consistency. The seasons change, the sun rises, the tides shift, reliably, predictably. Stability emerges from patterns. When you align your own behavior with this principle of steady repetition, you tap into the same force that governs growth in nature. A tree doesn't shoot into the sky overnight, it grows millimeter by millimeter, season by season, ring by ring. And yet, given enough time, it becomes immovable, unshakable. Human greatness works the same way. The tragedy is that many people quit too soon. They mistake slow progress for no progress. They think if the results aren't immediate, the effort isn't worthwhile. But the truth is that every act of consistency is a seed planted. It may not sprout tomorrow or next week, but given enough time, it produces fruit. The only way you fail is by abandoning the process before the harvest. So don't worship talent. Talent is accidental. It's what you're born with. Worship consistency because it's intentional. It's a choice renewed daily. That choice is what builds resilience, strength, and mastery over time. Dreams are seductive. They give us hope. They give us direction, and they give us something to imagine when the present feels unbearable. But the danger with dreams is that without action, they remain fantasies. They can even become traps. People cling to them as though merely having a dream is enough, and they talk about them endlessly as though talking were the same thing as moving. But here's the truth. A dream without daily effort is worse than nothing. It lulls you into believing you're on a path when in reality you're standing still. Action is the bridge between the life you imagine and the life you actually live. Every small step you take is a brick laid on that bridge. It doesn't matter how big your vision is. If you don't translate it into consistent daily behavior, it will never materialize. That's why some of the most intelligent or creative people never fulfill their potential. They mistake dreaming for doing. They believe the clarity of their vision is enough when in reality, execution is what separates success from stagnation. There's a psychological element here that's worth emphasizing. Human beings are wired to conserve energy. We rationalize, procrastinate, and delay because our brains interpret effort as risk. And so we keep the dream alive in our minds precisely because it's safe there. In your imagination, you never fail. In your imagination, the plan always works. But the moment you act, reality intervenes. You encounter obstacles, criticism, and setbacks. That's painful, but it's also necessary. Because until you act, you're not engaging with the truth, you're indulging in fantasy. And the danger of living in fantasy is that time keeps passing. You may think you're protecting yourself by holding off until the right moment, but the right moment doesn't exist. A year becomes 5 and 5 becomes 10. And suddenly you realize that the dream you once held so tightly has calcified into regret. Regret is the cruel shadow of a dream unpursued. It doesn't just haunt you, it diminishes you because deep down, you know you didn't even try. The antidote to that tragedy is daily action. Not occasional bursts of effort, not grand gestures, but small deliberate steps taken every single day. If you write 1 page a day, in a year you'll have a book. If you save a small amount of money consistently, in time you'll have financial security. If you practice a skill for even 30 minutes a day, you'll surpass those who only dabble when they feel inspired. It's not the scale of the action that matters, it's the regularity. Daily effort compounds. It accumulates into something extraordinary precisely because it's ordinary, repeated again and again. This is why discipline and consistency, which we've already discussed, are so deeply intertwined with the pursuit of dreams. The dream provides the destination, but daily action is the vehicle. Without the vehicle, the destination is unreachable. And what's remarkable is that the act of moving toward your dream, however, incrementally begins to reshape you. You build resilience, you acquire competence, you learn to navigate failure. The dream, in this sense, is not only about the goal you're chasing, but also about the person you become along the way. So don't ask, what's my dream? Ask instead, what am I doing today to move toward it? That's the only question that matters. Grand ambitions mean nothing without daily effort to back them. Dreams are the spark, but daily action is the fire. If you want to see your vision come alive, stop waiting for the perfect moment and start laying the bricks, one action, one decision, one day at a time. At the end of the day, there's only one person you can't escape yourself. You can argue with others, You can blame circumstances, you can point to your environment, but when you're alone, when it's just you in the mirror, there are no excuses left. That's where accountability begins. It's not about what others think of you. It's about whether you can honestly say that you gave everything you could, that you honored the commitments you made to yourself. And if you can't, then you know it, you feel it. That quiet disappointment in yourself is far heavier than any external criticism. The difficult truth is that people spend so much energy trying to escape responsibility by blaming others. But the cost of that escape is their own power. If everything is someone else's fault, your parents, your boss, society, the system, then what you're really admitting is that you're powerless. And once you adopt that belief, you're finished. You've surrendered the steering wheel of your life. Accountability may feel harsh, but it's the only path that leads to agency because it forces you to recognize that your choices matter. Philosophically, accountability is a confrontation with reality. It strips away excuses and lays bare the fact that who you are today is, in large part, the result of decisions you've made or avoided making. That's not to deny that circumstances play a role. Of course they do. Life is unfair. Some people are born with advantages, others with obstacles. But here's the critical point. No matter where you start, accountability demands that you ask, given where I am, what can I do? That question reclaims power. It shifts the focus from complaint to action. Psychologically, self-accountability is tied to integrity. Every time you make a promise to yourself and break it, you erode your own trust. You tell yourself, my word doesn't matter, and that belief seeps into everything. You procrastinate, you underperform, you settle. But when you keep your own promises, when you say, I will do this, and then you follow through, something changes. You begin to see yourself as reliable. That internal trust compounds, just like consistency compounds. And once you trust yourself, you become unshakable. The paradox is that many people hold themselves accountable only when others are watching. They work hard when there's external pressure, when the boss is monitoring, when the deadline looms. But the true test of character is what you do when nobody is watching. That's when your real standards are revealed. And if you can't hold yourself accountable in private, then any success you achieve in public will be fragile because it isn't rooted in authenticity. Accountability also carries a moral dimension. When you refuse to take responsibility, you don't just harm yourself, you harm those around you. If you don't manage your health, someone else will eventually carry the burden of your neglect. If you don't manage your finances, someone else may have to rescue you. If you don't manage your potential, the world is robbed of what you could have contributed. That's the hidden cost of avoiding accountability. It doesn't stay contained. It ripples outward. So the challenge is simple, though not easy. Stop outsourcing responsibility. Stop waiting for someone else to push you, to remind you, to rescue you. Look in the mirror and ask, am I living in a way that respects my potential? Am I carrying the weight that is mine to carry? Those questions are uncomfortable, but they're also liberating. Because once you own your failures, you also own your future. And that is the final truth here. Accountability isn't punishment. It's freedom. It's the recognition that no matter what's happened, no matter how far you've fallen short, you can still choose differently today. That choice is yours alone. In the end, everything we've talked about, self-reliance, discipline, embracing pain, consistency, daily action, and accountability comes down to one undeniable truth. No one else is going to live your life for you. No one else is going to carry your burden, chase your dream, or fight your battles. That responsibility belongs to you, and it always has. The world will offer you excuses, distractions, and even sympathy, but none of that will build the future you want. What will build it is your willingness to push yourself beyond comfort, beyond doubt, and beyond the limits you once thought defined you. If you remember nothing else, remember this: the quality of your life will always reflect the effort you're willing to give. So take responsibility, embrace the struggle, and push yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you.